to Rock Video Rental. I am Brandon, and with me, as always, is Caleb. And we are continuing on with movies that I haven't seen month. Last time we talked about The Usual Suspects. We're going to be talking about Memento today. But before we do that, Caleb, what have you been watching?
Oh, Bob's Burgers mostly,
Yeah?
that good stuff. I have done a little bit with video games, which we don't talk about very much, but um, I got a question for you. Did you ever beat RoboCop, the game?
Dude, I haven't even played RoboCop the game yet.
You haven't even started. Oh man, what is wrong with you?
No,
How
I haven't
bad?
had a lot of time. I've been
Whoa.
pretty swamped lately with work and everything.
No, I'm just messing. So um somebody talked about it recently with me, and so I was just like, oh, I never did beat that, so I started messing around with it again. So obviously, some connection there with being one of our favorite movies from the 80s. And the one thing that I felt worthy of sharing, since, I don't watch a ton each week, but
Hmm.
while playing the game, I don't know, I have not noticed it anywhere else in the game so far. So you know how when you play a game and it's a partially open world, so you're kind of like going around and exploring, and there's like side characters, like the GTA games. If you go around, you hear people
Yeah.
talk.
Hmm.
Well, that's in this. And I was walking, and there were these two guys who were talking in this parking lot, and they were talking about like some kind of vehicle, and he's just like, "Oh man, I would love to get my hands on that vehicle and drive that around." And the other guy's just like, "I'd buy that for $1." And I just thought that was so great. I was just like, I should have seen it coming. I should have known they would
Yeah.
have put that somewhere. So, but now I have to pay attention to see if it's a common theme through the game or if they just did it for that one part.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because that happens quite a few times in a RoboCop.
yeah.
Uh, Rock. Stuff that I've watched. I am in the last season now of Shameless. That's my second time around watching it. I watched Joe Bob's Last Drive-In last week, and they did Earth versus the Spider. It's a 1950s movie. I watched most of it. I fell asleep. Woke up and the second movie came on. The second movie was a wrestling horror movie called Dark Match,
Oh,
and then
really?
I fell asleep during that. uh, and then I watched Rookie of the Year.
Oh, nice.
I mean, classic movie from our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've just been putting those types of movies on now to see if like my daughter will have any interest in it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and she really didn't. She's
Y-
really not into sports, so
You know
didn't
the
really care.
the other one that I always associate with that
What's up?
is a kid in King Arthur, or isn't it a kid in King
Yeah, Kid
Arthur's
in King
Court?
Arthur's Court.
Yeah, though
Yeah, because
at
it's
one,
got Thomas Ian Nicholas in it.
yeah, once you say one of them, I always think of the other one, like in
Yeah.
conjunction with it.
One of my favorite things to talk about is that Thomas Ian Nicholas did those two movies and then he did the American Pie series
Yeah.
where he's like a horn dog. Uh, and then a couple sports things I've watched. I watched the Michigan Panthers game last weekend. They made it to the championship game, so it'll be interesting to see if they can win. And then I've watched some of the Stanley Cup finals. I was actually watching game four before I came upstairs to record, and it ended probably about 5 minutes after I came up because it was an overtime. But the Oilers won that, so I hope the Oilers win because no Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup since 1993,
That's
which is
funny.
pretty ridiculous because um, hockey is Canada's sport,
Yep.
and they have like seven teams.
Schmucks.
Yeah, I think the Canucks and um, man, that's probably it. The Canucks and the Oilers have come the closest since then. The Maple Leafs always seem to be one of the best teams in the league, and then they choke when they get to the playoffs. So every single year. But
So quick thing to toss in since we just talked about Kid in King Arthur's Court. You want to know something kind of crazy?
what's
Daniel Craig was in that movie.
what?
Yeah.
I have not seen that movie in probably like 25 years.
I know. I just like Googled it real quick to see when it came out and a couple things, and then there was a picture of a scene, and I was just like, "No way, is that Daniel Craig?" And it was. I mean, oh, dude, I may have to go back and watch that movie.
I I always forget that John Candy's in Rookie of the Year.
Oh yeah, as the announcer.
Yeah, as the announcer.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, that's pretty much it for me. Probably the movie I spent the most time watching and paying super close attention to was Memento. So let's talk about it. Memento is from 2000 and is directed by Christopher Nolan. Maybe you've heard of him.
Hmm.
The plot is a former insurance investigator who now suffers from anterograde amnesia uses notes and tattoos to hunt down his wife's murderer. The cast, we got Guy Pearce as Leonard, Carrie Ann Moss as Natalie, Joe Pantoliano as Teddy, Mark Boone Jr. as Bert, Russ Fega as the waiter, and Georgia Fox as Leonard's wife. Another Guy Pearce movie.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, because we just saw Ravenous.
Ravenous. Yep.
Yeah, I'm like, dang, it's like pretty close together. Also, another Joey Pants movie for us
Mm-hmm.
because he shows up in a lot of movies that we do. Um, yeah, I always kind of plays like the same character, but he's always really good at it. Obviously, because the theme of the month is movies I haven't seen before, so it's a first time watch for me. I have seen bits and pieces of this because I remember in college my roommate was watching it.
Okay.
I walked in, maybe saw 5 minutes of it, and like, I don't know, I had to go do something. Plus, it's one of those movies that you really can't just like walk in on and watch.
Oh yeah,
You gotta
probably.
watch the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, probably wouldn't mean a whole lot. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's and it's definitely one that you have to pay attention to because if you don't, then you're gonna be really confused.
Oh yeah, for sure. I even paid close attention to this and I was still confused at points. Um I mean, in a typical Christopher Nolan kind of way, uh something, a little bit similar is how was it Inception?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of similar to this. Like you get bits and pieces of what's going on, and this one you have to like completely stitch together as you move on because it'll be like, oh, with this scene, and then oh, now we're going back to what happened yesterday.
Yeah, so the summary or the overview is that the whole movie is taking place backwards, and so
Hmm.
you're trying to figure out how you got to the end, but in between, so and the interesting aspect of it being since this guy has this memory issue, the movie is taking place in the segments that he remembers. So
Yeah,
like he'll be able to remember things for like I don't know 5 or 10 minutes. So each scene is about 5 or 10 minutes, and then once that scene is done and he kind of like it breaks his concentration, it cuts to the black and white scene, the cutscene, I would call it.
Yeah.
And that scene throughout, that is a scene within itself. Um, and I'm fairly confident. I forgot to pay super close attention, but I'm fairly confident that the whole black and white scene is like one memory segment,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of interesting because there were two interesting things that I noticed paying more attention this time because this is I want to say like uh, at least the third, if not fourth or fifth time I've seen this movie. Um, the black and white segment as a standalone by itself, and the very last memory segment, the very last one where he um, meets the guy at the abandoned building. Those two are very long memory segments.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you look back and compare it to all the other ones. So it's just kind of interesting, like not going down the road of being too nitpicky about it, but it's kind of like if they because all the other segments were quite a bit shorter, this movie would not have worked out if those two memory segments were not able to be extended. So it kind of felt like they gave themselves a little bit of grace, a little bit of cushion there, because I'm just like, man, dude, like this guy has a hard time, especially when he's driving somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like usually he kind of loses his attention span during that drive, but they kind of it seemed like to me they kind of threw that out the window there for the end so you could wrap it up and put it all together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can't imagine having that type of amnesia where it's essentially live like the same day over and over.
oh yeah, well it's not even the same day.
It's
Like,
everything everything after uh his wife's death.
yeah. Well, cuz
So
a
it's
good
just like years and then like he's constantly searching for the killer of his wife.
yeah, it's a good movie to kind of compare it to, not saying that they're similar, but 50 First Dates, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too.
Yeah, so 50 First Dates, she has her memory for the entire day, but she just
Hmm.
thinks that the previous day was the day of her accident.
Yeah.
Now, with the Memento movie and Lenny or Leonard, main character, Guy Pearce, um, he can't hold any new memories. Like once his attention span is gone, which
Hmm.
I would have a horrible time with this because my attention span can go so fast sometimes. But
Right.
he like so throughout the day, every single day, he'll forget what's going on. It's kind of like
Yeah.
the idea of you're walking in your house and then you go in the other room to do something and then you forget why you're there.
Yeah.
Like on a constant basis. That would absolutely suck.
I
So,
know it'd be even like little things like where did I put the TV remote?
right?
I took a dump, but I didn't flush it.
Hmm.
Oh man.
I think one of the more interesting ones that just kind of well actually there were two of them kind of back to back that were funny and made things more interesting. And one was when he was sitting on the toilet with the bottle of wine or the bottle of
Yeah.
alcohol, and he's just like, "Why am I here? I don't feel drunk." And then he just automatically starts taking a shower, and it's not even his hotel room. But he doesn't know that because he doesn't know exactly what's going on. Um,
The one that got me too is when he's like, "Am I chasing this guy?" And then he run towards him, and the guy like pulls out a gun, shoots at him, and he's like, "No, he's chasing me."
yeah, that those two were the best because you're just like,
Yeah.
that's exactly how it would go. Like you wouldn't know.
Hmm.
Now, it is kind of weird because like since technically he can't remember anything since his wife's accident, like he does have some things that he has learned and kind of like trained himself for because like if you think about it, if you can't remember anything since your wife's accident, then you don't know anything about the police report.
Mm-mm.
So like every time you would get the police report, it'd be like you're reading a new thing.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of like wiggle room and everything kind of in that as well. But I mean, like you could break this movie down all day and find like little holes to poke in it. But really, honestly, this movie is very ambitious for what was taking on. Another thing that made me, I thought you were going to say this earlier, but could you imagine having to edit this movie?
Oh my gosh.
Like, oh man,
That's a big ask.
yeah, I feel like whoever edited this movie should have gotten some kind of award because it's crazy.
Yeah. To be able to, yeah, piece all that together to make it make any sense.
I mean, they
Well, I mean, the viewer is doing some work too, though,
mm-hmm,
because
for
we're
sure.
just given fragments of the story at a time, and then we kind of have to piece it together, and then it wraps it up at the end.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting to think. I think it's out there. I should have looked for it. I think somebody has put this movie together in chronological order.
Okay.
Because it would be very interesting because it would be a very different feeling movie because it would start off so intense where you're like, oh man, this guy like killed a guy, and then he decides that he's gonna kind of turn on this guy who's been helping him by like
Hmm.
essentially framing him, and then you go through all these steps and it ends with him shooting Teddy.
Yeah.
Like it just, I don't know it, because then you would know what's coming, or not know what's coming. It's weird to think about because you knew what happened because it happened in the movie because you're going backwards. But if you were going forwards, you'd be like, okay, where does this lead to, and like how does he eventually get it? It's such a weird thing to try to flip.
Hmm.
Like it's honestly like hurting my head right now.
Yeah. Um, I wonder how many movies were done in this style, where it's like basically the story's going backwards. It's so dumb, but what I thought about with this was like, oh, essentially this is like backwards. Like I came to realize that probably about 20 minutes in.
Mm,
It made me think of, have you ever seen the episode of Seinfeld that's backwards chronologically?
no.
Yeah, it was like in the last season. I can't even remember what the name of the episode is, but it's the whole thing's like backwards. And like you first see Kramer in a scene, and he's like throwing the stick from a lollipop away.
Okay.
And then then like 10 minutes later you see him in another scene and it's like half eaten. And then it's like full at the end of the show. Or like somebody sneezes or somebody says bless you, and then like 5 seconds later someone sneezes. So I mean it's not to the extent of that, but that's what it kind of made me think of the
That's fun.
backwards episode of Seinfeld. But
I just did a quick Google, and so I don't know if this has everything, but it says one of the earliest examples is a movie from 1967 called Happy End.
okay.
But then in 99, there was a South Korean film. In 2002, there was a French film. And then later in 2004, there was another French film.
Okay.
I don't remember this, but they're saying Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is similar.
Hmm. Yeah, I've never seen that.
Yeah,
I know about it, but I have never seen
I've seen it, but I
it.
mean, Trying to. Oh, okay, hold on. Yeah, I think those because pulled up another list too, and it shows the same thing. So really, around the early 2000s, this was kind of a popular. Well, I say popular, but is when several of these kind of came out
Hmm.
in a group. But yeah, that 1967 is the earliest example. So,
Rock.
hmm.
Oh. I will say if we're talking about acting, I don't think there was a weak link in this at all. I
Hmm.
thought Guy Pearce was really good. I think he was better in this than he was in Ravenous.
Oh yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, because I didn't think he didn't really blow me away in Ravenous. I'm like, yeah, he was all right. But this, like, he did such a good job, of especially with like the memory stuff
Hmm.
and I don't know, even just like the facial expressions and everything, like he was really good at. And I mean, like I said, kind of a little bit when we started this, that Joe Pantoliano is just good in everything that he does.
Yeah.
Sometimes he plays like a villain, um, especially like earlier in his career, like he was the bad guy in Risky Business with Tom Cruise.
Hmm.
But then he kind of plays like these fast talking wise guy characters that are just kind of get under your skin, and I feel like that's like his wheelhouse. He does really good at that.
Yeah. A little
Even
bit of
like the character he played in The Sopranos was like kind of unhinged, but he was also like really irritating.
a douchebag.
Yeah. And then Carrie Ann Moss, I haven't seen a lot of movies with her in it, and I thought she did pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I can think of is the Matrix movies, obviously. Wait, oh
Yeah.
wait, no, that wasn't her. Yeah, so, but no, she captured her character well. Yeah, like everyone did good. One that I think is a little bit overshadowed just by the magnitude of the story and obviously Guy Pearce's role as Leonard is a huge one, but one that I think was extremely well executed that I paid more attention to this time was uh, Harriet Harris, who played Mrs. Jenkins.
Okay.
Um, like that scene when she was testing her husband with the whole insulin, taking her insulin,
Hmm.
like you could see the gradual progression where she's just like horrified that her husband is killing her, and to her thought process, like in some sort of way knowingly killing her. And
Yeah.
like you could just see it get worse and worse, and it was just like, dude, it just, I mean, so creepy. And she did it so well. So
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, pretty much solid performances all around. Um and then I mean this movie's like shot really, really well. I mean, not a surprise, it's a Christopher Nolan movie.
mhm,
But some of the scenes like where he's driving around and they have like a camera that's like kind of in like the next lane over from the car, but also like behind it a little bit.
mhm,
Like that was a shot that really like kind of impressed me and got my attention. And then, we talked about the editing and how hard that must have been. Just like stylistically, this movie's really good too.
yeah,
Um, with the black and white flashbacks and the narration. And then just the whole trying to figure things out. He's taking the notes on the Polaroids, and then he's got things that contradict each other. Where you know Joe Pantoliano's character says like Carrie Ann Moss's character is basically like out to get him and he shouldn't trust her. But then she also says that he lies all the time.
Yeah.
So then he has to like try to figure out who's lying to him, who's right, you know?
And he has a little system too where he didn't trust what Teddy was telling him at one point, and so when he
Yeah.
wrote a note, he wrote it in cursive instead of his normal handwriting.
Yeah.
So he would either recognize that he meant to do that or think that somebody else wrote the note so that he would disregard it. So, um,
My question is, um, if he doesn't have short-term memory, how can he remember his system of writing on those?
yeah, that's part of the thing where I was saying and he kind of tried to explain it where he said that Sammy Jenkins didn't have, I think he said he didn't have a system or something.
Okay.
Um, so he tried to kind of explain like, oh, I do repetition, I do things, I've conditioned. He talked about conditioning himself
Hmm.
for some things. So they tried to kind of explain it. I still agree that like in reality, there's a huge gap there that kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Um, Now, if you want to get in depth with this movie, I did not realize this when when you mentioned the list of movies and the order that they were in, but having this movie right after The Usual Suspects, like talk about a bit of a cluster
Yeah.
because well, even beyond that, we're in a huge situation of what actually happened because there are a couple things that contradict themselves
Hmm.
in this movie, and you're just kind of like, okay, like did it really the biggest story part of it being that Teddy is saying that there was that Sammy Jenkins was not married, that he was a con man, and that Leonard handled that case, and the story that he knows as Sammy Jenkins is actually the story of him and his wife.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, so what's real? Like, did that really happen? Did he kill his wife with giving her insulin? Like, what they Teddy tells that story, but then there's no context, so you don't know. Like, there's no confirmation.
Hmm.
So just kind of like the usual suspects, you're sitting there kind of like, I think I know what this means, but there's way too many holes to be able to know for sure.
Yeah, and just kind of like the idea at the end too, where it's just like, Teddy's telling him that, how it breaks down is Leonard is essentially just like cursed to keep trying to find his wife's killer and forgetting he already found him and killed him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just finding someone with the name of John G over and over and over.
Yeah, John G or Jimmy G.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I mean that was kind of interesting too because yeah, you would figure that if early on you had heard Carrie Moss say that her boyfriend's name was John, that you'd
Hmm.
be like, "Oh, so it's a John G. So Leonard killed him." But since
Yeah.
his name was Jimmy, you didn't connect the dots cuz he had it in his notes in one spot where he said his name is John or Jimmy. But then he
Okay.
kept just saying John G. And so when she says Jimmy, you most people would not click with that.
Right.
Now, if you really want to talk about confusing, okay, all right, this is my biggest question mark with this movie that doesn't make sense to me. And it was very integral to the how the movie was executed.
Hmm.
and it was towards the end of the movie. Okay. So you remember when the scenes were going backwards, and then there was the scene where Leonard goes to the bar that Natalie works at?
Yeah.
Okay, so he pulls up in a car, and then Natalie walks up expecting it to be Jimmy because it's Jimmy's car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we learn that later. So then we're how did we get there? So we get there from the fact that the very first memory, which winds up being like the last scene and everything, Leonard meets Jimmy, starts beating him up because he thinks that he killed Jimmy killed his wife. And then while he's in the middle of beating him up, he tells Jimmy, take off your clothes. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, why? And he's just like, I don't want you to get blood on them. And so for some reason, Leonard's plan it was preemptive. He knew about this. He planned this was to have Jimmy take off his clothes so that he could wear his clothes.
Yeah.
Why?
I have no idea.
Like there's no that's the biggest piece where I'm looking at it on being like that doesn't make sense. Now when he gets mad at Teddy and is just like, you know what, screw this. I'm gonna set it up so that I think you're the one who did it, blah 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 kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
He I could totally understand him leaving that scene and taking Jimmy's car and being like, "Oh, this is going to be my car now." But the clothes thing makes zero sense. There's
Yeah.
no explanation that I can come up with that makes sense for Leonard to take Jimmy's clothes. Like I
Mm.
don't get it. I haven't searched. That's one thing I guess I'll admit that I didn't do this before recording this. I did not search to see if anybody had a good explanation for it, but that it doesn't ruin the movie at all. The movie's just still great and fantastic. But once you kind of break down the whole thing, and that is the one part that sticks out the biggest to me, I'm just like, I can't make sense of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really think of a reason for that either.
Hmm. I'll see if I can Google something but before next episode, and if I find something, I'll share it next week.
Rock. Um, the fact that he does some of his own tattoos,
Hmm.
that kind of caught me off guard too, because he gets like a pen
Yeah.
and puts a pin on the end of it, heats it up, and then he gets another pen and snaps it in half.
Yeah.
Like that was like, oh, okay. And then other places, like he runs in and gets a tattoo, you know?
Hmm. I'm just gonna give myself a tattoo sometime now.
So, like, this dude's just gonna keep doing this over and over and over, and like, eventually he's just gonna be completely covered in tattoos.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing too that also was the next biggest thing after the clothes thing that didn't make sense to me.
Mm,
Like why if Teddy's story is true, okay? Let's for a minute here say what Teddy is saying is true. He was the cop who helped Leonard on his case.
mm-hmm.
He helped Leonard find the original John G. And then Leonard killed him, and he had the picture of when he killed John G. You remember the picture where he's like
Yeah.
smiling and pointing at his chest?
Mm-hmm. And he
Why
burns
did
it.
why did they not go out and get the tattoo right away? Because like if
Yeah.
they went out and got the tattoo right away, because they showed it in his like visions or whatever, where his wife was still alive, that there was a tattoo on his chest that said something like "I did it" or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, why didn't he get that tattoo? Because if he got that tattoo, then that would probably help convince him, like, oh, I really did complete what I set out to do.
Mm-hmm.
but for some reason he didn't get that that with him being able to do these all these other things, it doesn't make sense why he would not have gotten that tattoo the original time when it happened.
Yeah.
So, and also, so biggest question mark for me is the clothes thing. Second one is why didn't Leonard get a tattoo after he really killed John G? Third thing is why did Teddy keep helping Leonard?
Yeah.
Like Teddy's telling him that this has happened for more than a year, if not multiple years. Like, dude, how annoying would that be? Why would you commit so much of your life to someone else going through this situation when you've already helped them kill the person they were looking for, and now you're just going around and like using him to kill other people, but then you have to jump through all these. Dude, I wouldn't trust it.
Right.
Like, I'd be like, dude, no way. This guy is too dumb because of his memory issue that he's going to get caught and something's going to come up and I'm going to get busted.
Yeah.
Like, so that too, to me, kind of doesn't make sense where it's just like, now, if this was like Leonard's brother or something, it'd be like, okay, you have a connection to Leonard. You want to help Leonard out. You want to do everything you can for Leonard. But this is just the random cop that got put on his case. And now he's like, I can never let you go.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Those were my three biggest questions from this movie. So again, it's like I feel like I'm crapping on the movie, which I'm not. I'm just being hypercritical of it, and those are the takeaways that I got from it. And it just I will need to spend some time just seeing if anyone else has any feedback or thoughts on that.
Rock. Um. Yeah. I wondered that too. I'm like, so is everybody just kind of playing in on this
Yeah.
over and over? Because at points it's almost like this is kind of like Groundhog Day. And speaking of Groundhog Day, the dude that played Ned Ryerson's in it.
Yep. Jinkus.
Yeah, when he popped up, I'm like, it's Ned Ryerson.
Um, and then, well, the funny thing too, so he was in the black and white flashback stuff, and then he had the scene with the doctor who's played by Thomas Lennon,
Hmm.
Reno 911, and that
Officer
whole
Dangle.
yeah. So it was just it's so weird to see him in such a serious role, especially back at this time, because I feel like that was around the height of nine Reno 911.
It might have been a little before that.
Um,
I mean, I don't remember when Reno came out. 2003.
okay, so right before that, yeah.
Yeah. Um, Officer Jim Dangle. Yeah, it's always weird seeing like someone who's usually such a goofy character. And I mean, Thomas Lennon's like in a lot of stuff, and he always plays kind of like these weird, quirky, off the wall characters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird seeing him in a serious role.
Oh yeah.
Um, Man, anything else to add? You want me to get into trivia and facts?
One last thing I'll touch on, just because it became such an integral part of it, and just kind of like it starts hitting you, and it kind of like makes you feel really bad for Leonard. So like after an hour of the movie, you start getting into the sections where people start manipulating him,
Yeah.
like that Natalie one.
Hmm.
Like just you're just like, oh, dude, like that absolutely just sucks. Like, well, I mean, technically, he got manipulated before that, which was kind of funny because he was manipulated by the motel front desk guy,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, we're charging you for 2 rooms," and he's just like, "Well, at least you're being honest with me." But yeah, Natalie faking or well, not faking. She purposely got Leonard
To
all
punch
heated
her.
up and everything so that he punched her in the face. And then she said that was somebody else.
Yeah.
She took all the pens and pencils so that he couldn't write anything down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then you saw that Teddy was kind of doing it too. So, which I mean, go figure. If you're spending so much time with the guy, like you would figure that he would probably do stuff like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But, anyways, yeah, that was kind of like the last major thing I was going to throw out there.
Rock. Yeah, you can kind of twist things around to get things your own way with that guy.
Mm.
Hey, you owe me $100.
Oh, yeah.
Hour later, hey, you owe me $100. uh, okay, so trivia and facts. So the medical condition experienced by Leonard in this film is a real condition, called anterograde amnesia, the inability to form new memories after damage of the hippocampus. During the 50s, doctors treated some forms of epilepsy by removing parts of the hippocampus, resulting in the same memory problems.
Hmm.
I feel like back in the day, removing part of the brain was just like the answer for everything.
Right. Whoops.
So during Teddy's line, you don't have a clue, you freak. Director for Christopher Nolan felt that Joe Pantoliano did not quite nail the end of the line, so he decided to re-record the last two words to his liking, delivering them himself. So therefore, in the final film, the words "you freak," as we hear them, are actually being said by not by Pantoliano, but by Nolan impersonating Pantoliano.
Oh, that's
Pantoliano was unaware of the dubbing until the interview, um, that it was done like a year later.
oh gosh, that's so he saw the movie and he didn't even know it. That's kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. So Christopher Nolan's screenplay was based on his brother Jonathan Nolan's story, Memento Mori. However, the screenplay is still considered original rather than adapted because Jonathan's story wasn't published until after the film was completed.
Hmm.
So many of Leonard's unique voiceovers were improvised by Guy Pearce.
Oh.
Stephen Tobolewsky, who was Ned Ryerson, has stated that during his audition for Sammy, he had mentioned to Christopher Nolan that he had experienced amnesia personally. A few years earlier, he was given an experimental painkiller that induced amnesia for a surgery he had undergone. Tobolowsky said it may have helped him get this part because no other actor would have had firsthand experience.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So Carrie Ann Moss personally recommended Joe Pantoliano for the role of Teddy, having become good friends with him while they were working on The Matrix. Christopher Nolan and his producers had reservations about this because they weren't sure uh, Pantoliano's screen persona was right for the match at Teddy, but then they met him and decided that his talent made him the right person for the part. Nolan later praised Pantoliano for having brought the right amount of subtlety to his performance as Teddy.
Rock.
To reiterate how memory changes things, some overlapping shots between two loops use different takes while the others are the exact same shot.
Okay.
All the dialogue in a black and white sequences that feature Sammy were improvised.
Hmm.
The scene where Leonard is explaining to Natalie the different ways his memory works incorporates actual ways in which Christopher Nolan had experienced a project or explained the project to people before shooting. The idea of knowing how a wooden table would sound when you knock on it and other feel the world aspects allowed Nolan to get people into Leonard's head when he was describing it.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty well done.
And the last thing I got is this movie had a $9 million budget, and it made 40 million in the box office.
Rock.
So grades, IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes. What do you think they are?
I think I may have seen IMDb. Was it an 8.4?
It is an 8.4.
Okay. Rotten Tomato critic, give me 89.
94.
Ooh, dang. Okay. Rotten Tomato audience, 91.
94.
Oh, dang.
They
All right.
agree.
Shocking.
So I guess I'll get my grade first because you went first last time.
Rock?
This movie's really well acted. It's really well shot and directed. It's kind of an interesting idea, and the fact too that it kind of plays backwards. Um, I think my only issue with it is it was a little hard to follow,
Mm,
and that might hurt the rewatchability for me, just because it is a movie that you have to give like a lot of your attention to. So, I don't know. I feel like I can't give it anything less than a five because it's done so well. Like I
rock.
was kind of between a 4.5 and a five, but I think I'll just land on the five because I really can't give it anything less than that.
Rock. Yeah, that's interesting your perspective on rewatchability. Like I understand definitely from the aspect of it definitely being a movie that you have to be in the right mood to watch.
Hmm.
But for me, it's a little bit interesting from the concept of um there's so much to get from this movie um
Hmm.
when you watch it each and every time because it's just I caught a lot of things um this time through. It seems like each time, and kind of like the usual suspects, it seems like there's an endless amount of things that you could dissect and try to find. So, and there's always the good and the bad with that, because there can be a lot that you feel like you have to pay attention to that and it almost feels like a chore. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the one thing that I don't think we or some people talk about enough is giving someone credit for editing the movie. And I don't know if there's another movie that we've covered on, wow, how many years now?
A lot.
8 years, 7 years of
Yeah.
this podcast that I would feel like would have been as much of a chore to edit as this one. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, yeah, sure, there are going to be a lot of them where they just have an overabundance of amount of film to go through, but
Hmm.
just the idea of going through it, finding the good parts, piecing the good parts together, and then putting the good parts, putting it all together in the right order so that a movie flows properly when you're telling it backwards. Like that just is crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, great job directing, great job acting. Really like no notes. I do still stand by the whole concept of there are three huge things that leave me asking questions and being kind of confused, but it's good to have movies, elements in movies, a lot of the time that keep you talking about them.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, no doubt 5 out of 5 for me. So, and with how this movie was, I really seriously probably will be doing some searching to see what people have said about those questions I have and see if there's anything about it that I might
Rock.
be able to bring up next week.
Nice. Well, I can say that next week's gonna be a little more laid back and less intense. We're gonna be talking about The Princess Bride. So it's not gonna be a crazy mystery
Yeah.
like the last two movies have been. I looked at the schedule too, and I'm like, man, we had like two really like head scratcher deep movies, followed by The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be a nice change, I guess. If you guys are liking the show, please subscribe and share. You can find us on social media. We're on pretty much every platform. Go check out our YouTube and our TikTok for more content. Um, if you guys are liking this interesting theme month, come by next time. We're going to be talking about The Princess Bride. And until then, as always, be kind and rewind.